welcome back to another video. The time has finally come for me to give you my picks for the top 5 rackets for the single-handed backhand. I'd like to say a big thank you to All Things Tennis. They supplied me with pretty much all of my kit. They give me these rackets to review, and this is my complete honest opinion. They're not telling me, anything about the rackets really. I'm just playing with them, and then I'm giving you my honest feedback. Let's get stuck in. Okay, straight in at number 5, we've got the Wilson Ultra Pro version 4. Specs of this frame: 97 square inch head, 16-19 string pattern, and 305 grams in weight. The way that this helped my single-handed backhand out was precision, feel, and control. Not too much power out of this racket, so I actually had to couple it with the Nordic Dots power string just to give it a little bit more oomph. But I was really enjoying this racket, especially indoors, a lot of feel. It really helped me because I felt like I could hit through the ball and I wasn't over-hitting. So especially things like, the backhand return, I was able to punch the ball back in, and it just never felt like the ball was going to go long. It was very easy in terms of, precision, control, reliability. Also, with the rest of my game, I felt like serving, I was getting a lot of precision, a lot of accuracy, and that was, just due to the way that the racket is set up. It's a lot more geared towards control, feel. One thing that this racket is, for me, it stands out from the rest of the rackets on this list was the backhand slice. The amount of feel and control, precision that I was getting on that shot in particular, it was phenomenal. So players who like to play with a lot more slice on the backhand side, in my opinion, this racket is perfect. The only thing that I felt like this racket doesn't give you as much of, and this is probably because of the thinner beam, the smaller sweet spot, is power. I felt like at times it was, really hard to get anything out of the racket, especially with the one-hander. So anything like spin, I was struggling a little bit. I felt like it was good for hitting through the ball when I had a really good contact, but it didn't offer me too much in terms of, spin, getting up the back of the ball. But apart from that, this racket, but like I say, indoors, quicker conditions, anything where you need more feel, more precision, this racket was phenomenal. Where it fell down was when I was playing outside, when I was in the wind. It was a little bit harder to hit the sweet spot because it is so small. Maybe that's me being I don't know. But yeah, that was kind of the downside to using this frame, was it's actually quite difficult to use. If you're looking for control, precision, this racket's right up your street. Okay, number 4. So straight in at number 4, we've got the RF1 Pro from Wilson. Specs of this frame: it's got a 98 square inch head, 16-19 string pattern, and it's 320 grams in weight. Comes with a very nice looking leather grip straight off the shelf. I always like a leather grip. I feel like it adds a bit of stability to the frame. So what were my honest thoughts on the RF1? So I've been testing this racket out for probably about a year now. I think it's been a year since it came out. Obviously, I was really excited to hit with it. Massive Roger Federer fanboy. And what I'll say about it is it's not like the Pro Staff whatsoever. More of a boomstick, a lot more power, a lot more spin. I felt like it really added to my single-hander in terms of power, easy pace, and height over the net and spin. So it's actually perfect for players who want a little bit more power, want something more from the racket. They may be able to, control the ball a little bit more, and what they need is a little bit extra behind their shots. I feel like because of the way the racket is set up, so the beam width, the head size, the sweet spot, I feel like it is more geared towards power, whereas obviously, the Wilson Ultra Pro, that's way more towards precision. But if I had to choose between the two, I would go for a little bit more power, especially as this leads into the rest of my game, you know, things like the serve. I felt like this performed exceptionally well on the serve. It was so easy to get power, pop. I was loving it. The area that I felt, you know, let it down a little bit was when I was looking for a little bit more control. Sometimes I felt the ball kind of just flying out of nowhere. Maybe that's me just being again, I don't know. But it just felt like that. It felt like occasionally, you know, when I was trying to get a little bit of precision from the racket, it would just fly. But like I say, perfect for those players that like to hit big power, big spin, or need something a little bit extra in regards to power and spin in their game. So that's the RF1 Pro. Time for number 3. Okay, straight in at number 3, we've got our first Yonex racket on the list, which is the Percept 97. Specs of this frame, it's got a 97 square inch head, 310 grams in weight with a 16-19 string pattern. For me, this racket is very similar to a Pro Staff in feeling. It's stiffer, you know, it's slightly more punchy through the ball. I felt like I actually didn't get as much spin with this frame. I was able to hit the ball a lot flatter, but with more control, far more direct. Because of the extra weight compared to, you know, some of the other rackets on the list, that extra 5 grams, you know, I had a little bit more behind it. But in terms of, you know, feel on the backhand side, I was able to punch through the ball, you know, really well while maintaining that control, getting that really direct feeling. And I had a lot of feel on the slice. You know, the slice felt like a dream with this thing. The only areas where I think this racket kind of, you know, didn't perform as well was when I was looking to get a little bit more spin. It was just, you know, a little bit harder to work with. You know, it wasn't as good as, let's say, the RF1 Pro in terms of spin, or, you know, maybe something like a Head Extreme, you know, far more spin from that. But again, this isn't that type of racket. This is, you know, probably more geared to players who like to play flatter, you know, more through the ball. But yeah, in terms of feeling, this racket is a little bit stiffer, but for me, the sweet spot still felt big. It wasn't like, you know, the Ultra Pro, which felt like the sweet spot was about the size of a 5p. But yeah, very, very impressed with the Yonex Percept. In my opinion, you know, perfect for players who like to play flatter, especially through the backhand side, you know, while maintaining that control. Probably for players who are a little bit more advanced, like to generate their own power, good choice for the one-handed backhand. Just on a side note, the area where I feel like this racket performed the best was actually on the serve. There was a lot of weight behind it, but the thing that impressed me the most was the precision, the accuracy. Like, probably one of the best on the market for the serve. Anyway, before I get too carried away, let's move on to number 2. Number 2, we move my Head Extreme Pro 98. So I used this racket for about 6 months. And what I felt was it performed exceptionally well when I was outdoors. Anything where I was able to use more height, more spin, I really felt like this racket came into its own. Obviously, you know, the clue's in the name, it's extreme spin. And I felt like this was a slightly more powerful version of the blade. It gave me a little bit more pop, but again, it's not uncontrollable. It's not like the RF1 Pro, which is a bit more of a boomstick. So it sits in that really nice category where it gives you a lot, but then, you know, it's not too much. You can still get the control and the precision. So on the single-handed backhand, I felt like I had this really nice kind of thing going on where I could take a shorter backswing, guarantee the contact, and because the racket was giving me so much in terms of power and spin, all I needed to do was just let it go, and I would get this really nice, you know, arc on the ball. And something that I've pretty much always struggled with, what a lot of single-handers struggle with, is, you know, when the ball gets up high, when there's wind, anything like that. And I felt this racket was unbelievable in those tricky conditions. It was just so reliable. So, you know, when the ball's coming in and it's high and it's swinging around, because it's so maneuverable, you know, it was easy to control those balls. And because you get so much spin, it's just bringing the ball back in the court, you know, consistently. So the Head Extreme Pro 98 with a 16-19 string pattern, 98 square inch head, and 305 grams in weight is number 2 on our best rackets for single-handed backhands list. Before we get on to number 1, we're going to go to a few honourable mentions. So the first of the honourable mentions is the Head Gravity Tour 98. Specs of this frame, it's a 98 square inch head, 16-19 string pattern, and it's 305 grams in weight. Just let me check that. Is that 300? Yeah, it is. I got it right. Playing with this racket, it was so fun. Offers so much in terms of power and spin. The only downside is it's just a little bit limited on control. So if you really like to let the backhand go and you really like to rip up the back of it, then this is perfect. For things like the slice, you know, feel, control, I didn't really feel like I got loads out of it. But again, serving, absolutely phenomenal. It's a rocket with this thing. Kick serve, a joke. And that's partly because of the, you know, the holes in between the strings are bigger. It's kind of got that, like, you know, wider head shape. So that does offer more spin, more power, but, you know, be prepared to do a lot of stringing because you're probably going to break more strings with this thing, as I've encountered. But yeah, such a fun racket. If you're wanting more power, you know, you're wanting more spin, this is definitely the one for you. So another honourable mention is the Blade version 9 from Wilson. I feel like that would just be cheating, putting this racket in the list, because it's so good, I think, for all players. It's like putting the Aero 98 in this list as well. It's just, you know, it's not specific, in my opinion, for one-handers. I think this racket is just a great all-round racket, and you can see why these things just fly off the shelf. I mean, it's like slap bang in the middle of everything. Power, control, stability, feel, spin. This thing will give you pretty much everything. So that's why it's not in the list. It definitely would make the list, but I just feel like that would be cheating. Like putting the Aero 98 in, you know. But anyway, time for number 1. So this might come as a shock to many people, but number 1 on the list is the Wilson Pro Staff version 14. So in my opinion, it doesn't get much better than this in terms of rackets for a single hander. I have tried this a lot without customization. This is actually my current racket of choice. I'll be doing a full video on this later on sometime, can't say when. But that will disclose all of my specs, you know, the reasons why I chose this frame. But the reason why it's perfect for one-handers is because it delivers precision, feel, control, while not lacking in power and weight behind the ball. In my opinion, this is designed for, you know, advanced players. You know, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend picking up this racket. I know it's like tempting because, you know, the whole Federer thing going on. But yeah, it's definitely directed at more advanced players, players who like to play through the ball a little bit more. I would say that I can generate a lot of spin with this racket. You know, I can kind of do a lot with it, especially on the backhand side. But for me, the strengths of this racket lie within hitting through the ball, being very direct with my ground strokes. You know, things like the slice as well. I'm not losing out on any control when it comes to the slice. And serving, in my opinion, I don't think there is a better serving racket on the market than this at the moment. I think that the Yonex Percept 97 comes close, but for me, this felt like the best. So big thank you for tuning in again. Really appreciate you guys watching my videos. If you get the chance to subscribe, then obviously really appreciate it. Give us a like, throw in a comment, let me know what is your favorite racket for the single-handed backhand. But just before we go, quick thing about grips. So I use the Head Prime Tour grips from All Things Tennis. Again, big thank you to All Things Tennis for sending me all the rackets, all the kit, everything. But yeah, I actually can't believe how good these grips actually are. Again, I'm not paid by Head, not paid by All Things Tennis. I choose to use these grips. I was using the RF1 Pro over grips, but I was finding they were a little bit difficult to, get for free. But these are exactly the same and they're cheaper. So, they're literally the same as the RF1 Pro over grips. So I don't see why, you wouldn't use them. So I use them with all my rackets, my own rackets I test, and I highly recommend them to anybody who likes the feel of a RF1 Pro overgrip. I've attached all the links to the rackets and the string that I'm using in the bio below. They're not affiliate links. I don't get paid for any of this. I'm not being paid by All Things Tennis. This is just a video that I wanted to put out there. I wanted to, give my honest opinions, maybe help people with some racket choices, selection. So yeah, if you buy those rackets, then I don't earn any money. Anyway, big thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.